Are you driven, ambitious, and ready to earn? WESN, the content capital, is expanding, and we're looking for dynamic media sales executives to join our team. Sell powerful advertising solutions across television, digital, and social media platforms, and help brands tell their story. If you have strong communication skills, a passion for sales, and the drive to succeed, join WESN today. Send your CV to marketing@wsncc.com or WhatsApp 6861662 and start building your future.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
In this day of stay at home and work from home, home has never meant more than it does today. Whether you're looking to buy, rent, or build your new home, now is the time to get going. Gittins & Gittins real estate agents are here to take you to that place of your dreams. Let us take you home. We help you find that rental to rest along the way or journey with you to find your home destination. Investors and commercial enterprises too, call us and we'll walk the distance to place your business in just the right location. Owners, leave the headaches to us. We'll find your tenants or buyers while you stay at home. We'll even manage your property at your bidding. Anything real estate, come home to Gittins & Gittins Real Estate. Call us at 760-3280 or 747-1220 or visit us at 16 Fifth Street in Woodbrook.
WESN.
This is not just a police issue, this is a TNT issue, where we all have to come together to make the country a safer place. Whatever I say after this point, I just want to be upfront and acknowledge that statement reported being said by Deputy Commissioner of Police Suzette Martin. Whatever criticisms I might level during the rest of the episode towards the TTPS, the government, the opposition, what have you, please understand that more or less is technically the guiding light, the starting point, the mission statement, the vision statement, whichever one, or both. I agree with that. Now the question is, however, do I agree with the efforts to try to accomplish that? But we need to understand, though, the reason why these things matter, the reasons why these things should be the basis of any initiative is because it then informs us how to approach what it is that we do. It informs me how to approach what I do. I have a part to play. Our production team has its part to play as members of the media with regards to making the country a safer place. And what we do is indirect, and hopefully it still matters. But I think now the Deputy Commissioner said these words, it's not just for the police. It's not just for law enforcement. It's for all of us. Because as I said, with the controversial video of a beheading that made the rounds on WhatsApp earlier this week, it's not about necessarily, well, you know, what party and who to blame and point the fingers. No, certain aspects of the violence. Certain aspects of the violence that we have seen this week. While yes, you can question both this government's and the previous government's efforts to put a handle on crime, we have to acknowledge that on some level, the level of violence, the unique level of callousness, disregard, lack of compassion, it's more than just law enforcement potentially losing control, a government potentially losing control, two governments potentially losing control. It's more than that. It speaks to the very fabric of society. And you could say maybe the fault started there, started with the authorities, but the solution at this point ain't going to be just limited to them. And you could spend time pointing fingers, and you know what? The finger pointing might even be accurate, but the solutions don't necessarily care about who's to blame unless it directly translates into how to fix it. But with things like this, just dealing with the politicians to blame for the history, that's not actually going to solve the problem. If someone in your household accidentally sets the house on fire, blaming them, charging them, if necessary, with criminal charges, locking them up, that's not going to solve the problem. Having them pay restitution, even that is not technically going to solve the problem. Because the problem is not just monetary value being lost. The problem is a home being lost, a household being lost, a family being put out, memories, precious items, sentimental value being all washed away. No, the problem is the house is on fire. And while the house is on fire, the goal should be to out the fire. Not to watch everything burn down, but hey, at least we got who to blame. That said, I might have a strong opinion or two later on in the show, but I'm going to save that for now because there's a couple of things that I want to get off my chest first, right? Initially, my intention was to do a follow-up of where I was yesterday, just before we started taking calls. It was about the Victims' Rights Bill. Now, let me go with the list of provisions being listed out here. And the caveat is, yes, there's always a chance that a news reporting team, that is to say the reporter who wrote the story or an editor or whoever else has control, might have edited things for various reasons. They aren't all nefarious, right? But it could leave the situation where the words of any given politician is not reported on accurately 100%. It could be 99%, 95%. It could be a bad faith manipulation. However, that said, we'll go with what's in the report. The report has a list of provisions. And I'm going to try now to make the point I was making yesterday, but I'm going to go with a wholly or completely cynical example. Completely cynical example. So this is a very negative interpretation. I'm not saying it's true. I am just putting the interpretation out there as to why I have an issue with how this is done. And this, to some extent, better responds to Mr. San Fernando's prevailing theory on what the practice or what the function was of this sort of public presentation that is lacking of details, right? So one of the provisions, which I said was a good one, victims are entitled to updates on investigations. That's very straightforward. You are a victim, you report a crime, somebody is charged, or there's an investigation ongoing, you are entitled to updates, because a lot of people want to know what's going on. Because far too many people have the experience that their case seemingly just dies a slow, natural death into the ether, never to be seen again. No justice, no restitution. More on that in a few seconds, but more than a few. Let's go to the one provision that I'm fairly certain I have an issue with, right? Victims are protected from the moment a report is made. There's a lot of issues I have with this. On the practical side, let me just point to the practical stuff. First, what has some of our media ambassadors revealed to us, not only ASP Arun, but specifically him because he worked directly in that area. The example was a special victims example. The one tangible example we were given, rhetorically speaking, was a special victims example. And we have been told in this country, so this is not just in theory, there are people who do not necessarily want to press charges and who do not want, by extension, police protection because they want to go back into the same household where the abuser resides, which kind of leaves the police in a bind. Now, how do you protect someone that doesn't want to actually extricate themselves from the situation? But let's go a step further, and perhaps soon to be retired Inspector, formerly known as Acting SP Ashraf Ali, will be able to give us his opinions on the top of his head on this. We have hundreds of thousands of crime in this country. I don't know. I mean, I think 42,000 serious crimes over 4 years. That's 10,000 a year. What is the criteria to provide protection? What does protection mean? Is it one officer? Is it two? Is it 2 officers per victim, 24 hours, only at night? And then if we do that, so that's 10,000 a year, potentially. Do we have enough officers for that? Who's going to do all of the other things? What's going to happen during Carnival when all hands are supposed to be on deck to be on the streets of Carnival if the entire police service, because I don't think it goes over 10,000, is on protection duty? What about, okay, something more recent to be coming up on this year's schedule, Republic Day and Independence Day? How many officers are going to be assigned to do this job? And just having an overnight shift means that you're not really supposed to be using those officers during the day. It's not like they could nap while trying to protect somebody. That doesn't make any sense, right? So what does police protection mean? Is it just a protection order in the court? Because even that would require some degree of police response and presence. Otherwise, it wouldn't necessarily save anyone's life. But here's the real issue. Because again, we don't know what it is, so we'll find out in the debate. Here's the problem with it. Here's how it can, I'm not saying it is, but here's how there is the possibility that the communication of this bill in this manner can get nefarious. Because they don't have the details on how victims will be protected from the moment a report is made. They're not providing us with details, right? So what is the public going to do when they see that? All they are going to do is not necessarily debate on the hows, the who, what, why, when, where. They'll just debate on the thing, on the surface premise alone. They will just have an opinion on, well, I agree, victims should be protected. What does that mean? I don't know, but I agree. And then the narrative is not necessarily going to be, how do we do this thing that might not be as easy as you think it is? The narrative is just going to be, do you agree with it or not? We oversimplify it for the population, right? Because people are smart. Sorry, a person is smart. People are dumb. That generally, seemingly, is the way that far too many governments craft their mass communication strategy. The reality is not that a person is smart and people are dumb. The reality is communicating to a person is easy. Communicating to a large group of people like the population of a country, even a country as small as ours, that's hard. And a lot of public speakers ain't good enough. Look, even with COVID, the United States government led the world in oversimplifying the messages of COVID. Allowed Fauci to contradict himself, say one thing at the start about masks, don't wear masks, then everything took a major U-turn, no, now you must wear masks, and that was just one of the egregious examples of an oversimplified message that did far more harm than good. Why did they do that? Because it's easier to say these simple things rather than trying to explain complexity to a population of millions and billions, because it's not as though they're that well versed at it. Even our own Ministry of Health team, I do believe they tried their best at their press conferences, but they didn't necessarily communicate things for the public as best as possible. But I don't think it was intentional, unlike some people. I think it was just they were giving information they thought was pertinent in a manner and a framework they thought was reasonable or efficient. But for the layman, it's not always what the common man needed to hear. Now, victims are protected from the moment a report is made. Because there's no details on how that is supposed to be implemented, it will just be a binary thing. Do you agree with it or not? That's what the population will come down to. When the reality is, whether this is going to be a good legislation or not, you need more than that. But the narrative will be just based on, do you agree with it or not? And if you don't agree with it, then you don't want to protect victims. You're an evil person and wants to see victims harmed. That's how the narrative can go. That's how the narrative has gone in similar situations where an issue is oversimplified. That's what's happened in the United States. If you don't want X, you have to be a bigot or a racist, or you don't want people to have health care, you don't care about America's security. That's where the debate goes on both sides of the aisle. It boils it down and it primes the population for the emotional argument of, well, why don't you want this? Everyone should want this. And then all of a sudden, well, we don't really care about what the details are to push it through. It's far more important to push it through because it says on the surface it's going to protect witnesses. We don't even know if it actually will be able to protect witnesses. We had anti-gang legislation. How many gang members got charged in this country and convicted of being in a gang? How many? I think we had one guy charged, and that was like 2 years ago or some craziness like that. And we made note of it here on Talking Point, and then we never heard of another charge again. And maybe Ashraf could correct me on that, but as far as I'm aware, we ain't convicting gangsters, you know. We're not. We have an anti-gang bill, we're not convicting gangsters. How? Why? So there are deficiencies in legislation, and the last thing we need is to add on top of it, they decriminalize marijuana. I don't go out that much, so maybe I have a skewed sample size, but I tend to smell marijuana in public far too often for my comfort, because the law was not well thought out. This is a P&M law. It wasn't well thought out. It was incomplete. It didn't address everything. It didn't facilitate the intentions of the law. We agree with the intentions, and that's the point. They come at you with intentions. And what's actually written in the fine print is some half-baked nonsense that is probably, at times, not always, sometimes it's not this bad, but sometimes it's worth less than the paper it's printed on. You could print it on toilet paper, it might still be worth less than toilet paper. So that's my issue with presenting something to the public, priming them up on what can end up being, and listen, it doesn't have to be intentional. Things could end up like this, where you oversimplify an issue, turn it into an emotional debate, and it might not even be intentional. But then once that train starts moving, even the original communicator, the original presenter, might not be able to get it to stop. All right. Now, I did say that I'll get to this in a bit. The father of the young girl that was killed in Tobago with that accident, he says that his family he is reported as saying his family feels justice is slipping away as police investigations continue without charges being laid. Now the question is, will it eventually be a point where officers will start to get annoyed at his request for information, his request for updates, and then eventually they kind of tell him off, and then at some point the case just disappears? So I wanted to mention this before we get into what happened yesterday. Because this man lost his daughter to his family, while has not suffered the same level of death, was impacted in a way that we would never wish on anybody. And it would be a shame if we forget about it because we're too caught up with the Bacchanal and the Bmobile and or whatever is the latest sensational murder. Because something like this, where arguably speaking, this was done in broad daylight, in the public. It should not be, unless people are lying or withholding evidence, it should not be that nobody knows who was operating the jet ski at that time. I'm not talking about the owner. I'm talking about the person on the jet ski that caused this accident. Because if he took the jet ski and abandoned it somewhere, first of all, somebody should have known who took it out, unless it was stolen. No one said it was reported stolen. And then, wait, you mean to tell me no one saw him take it? He had no authorization to take it? I'm fairly certain it probably came back. They know who, the owner probably has it, right? This is ridiculous. We're not talking about you need to have some old granny, right, that has eyeglasses thicker than my shoe, that could barely see, and her line of sight was blocked by hedges and trees and ferns and a fence and a whole fast food establishment, right, and cars passing on a highway, right, and there was smog and rain and mist and hail. No, we're talking about broad daylight. It is almost unreasonable. It is near impossible that nobody knows who was operating the jet ski. If there are no reasonable consequences or explanations with regards to this, then anything we do about crime, all of the lip service we pay, all of the nonsense being said, coming on the heels of the murder that happened yesterday, about bringing people to justice. You can't even bring this situation to justice? What nonsense is that? How pathetic is that? So I feel for this father. It's one thing to lose your child that way. A child that by all rights should not have died. That's one thing. It's another thing now to know this is how your government is responding. And everybody involved is technically part of the government. Right? This is how your government and the place where you were spending your money, the island where you were spending your money, you opted into vacation in Tobago. And there apparently are enough Tobagonians that don't want to say anything. I don't know. Because how is it that nobody knows? And listen, the police don't have to tell us anything. But when the victim's father, when the victim's family are saying, we're not being told anything, we have this concern, who am I to question that? There was also a situation with some secondary school students. A politician attempted to apparently break up a fight, and they attacked the person who attempted to break up the fight. He actually ended up being an alderman in Port of Spain. at least one report had a certain school, right? But I don't necessarily want to, because the report I'm seeing here now doesn't necessarily have the universe. Oh, yes, no, it does. Yes. Tranquility. Okay, so it's out there in public. I just needed to be sure it's out there in public. Tranquility. First of all, that sentiment, an adult male comes to stop a fight, they decide to just include him in the beating. That is the mentality that we are developing. We adults are developing in our young people. We. Right? That's point number one. Point number two, there's a lot of things going on in tranquility. There's a lot. This is just a tip. There's enough bad things in tranquility where I'm comfortable to say it's worse than this. Much. This is not the worst thing I've heard of tranquility students. Not by a long shot. I don't know about other schools. For better or worse, I know about this school. And it might be that this is more common than we think. It's not limited to just one school, and heaven help us if it is. But I just want to point that out. I'm moving on. A lot is happening, and it seems like, I don't know if the staff is able to handle it or is willing. I'm not sure which one it is. Republic Bank apparently reportedly reversed the banking fee increase. Well, that's interesting. That's interesting. Because if you could reverse the fee increase so easily, now it starts to make you look as though you were trying to be greedy. This is one of those things where transparency works for you. But if you just want to kind of do things and in an arrogant manner, don't expect the public to pity you. And I'll leave that there. All right. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll get into the latest crime stories. I did not expect, to be honest, the topic that I want to speak of today ties directly into what happened yesterday, except I didn't know what happened yesterday until this morning. And I am not happy. Editorially, it adds to the topic. It gives us more to talk about. It gives us more to get into here to discuss. But at what cost? I don't know. Am I the only one that's sick of hearing children getting murdered? Because sometimes that's what it seems like to me. It's like we've reached the point now where the public is, to some extent, desensitized to children getting murdered. Some notable examples in the papers being the exception, not the norm, because this country is way too placid over things like this. But, not necessarily going to talk about that, but we'll continue the conversation after the break. Stay tuned.
If these walls could talk, they'd cry uncle. They didn't plan to become offices or yoga studios. But they've stood by us, even when we got a little stir-crazy. For that, they deserve some thanks. They deserve Benjamin Moore.
In Trinidad and Tobago, cervical cancer still remains a serious health problem, ranking the third most frequent cancer among women in this country.
So you may be happily at home not knowing you might have the early signs or the early stages of cervical cancer. So the first thing is that it can be completely without any symptoms or signs.
Are you driven, ambitious, and ready to earn? WESN, the content capital, is expanding, and we're looking for dynamic media sales executives to join our team. Sell powerful advertising solutions across television, digital, and social media platforms, and help brands tell their story. If you have strong communication skills, a passion for sales, and the drive to succeed, join WESN today. Send your CV to marketing@wsncc.com or WhatsApp 68-61662 and start building your future.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide, Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
In this day of stay-at-home and work from home, home has never meant more than it does today. Whether you're looking to buy, rent, or build your new home, now is the time to get going. Gittins & Gittins real estate agents are here to take you to that place of your dreams. Let us take you home. We'll help you find that rental to rest along the way, or journey with you to find your home destination. Investors and commercial enterprises too, call us and we'll walk the distance to place your business in just the right location. Owners, leave the headaches to us. We'll find your tenants or buyers while you stay at home. We'll even manage your property at your bidding. Anything real estate, come home to Gittins & Gittins Real Estate. Call us at 760-3280 or 747-1220 or visit us at 16 Fifth Street in Woodbrook.
I'm back here on Talking Point, and in all my anger, I didn't even introduce myself. I'm sure Michael Small joining me, of course, right now. As always, we have Ashraf Ali, the former police officer, formerly known as Acting SP Ashraf Ali. I actually want to say that from since
I hear you.
When I was leaving home, I'm like, you know, the artist formerly known as Ashraf Ali, Acting SP Ashraf Ali.
Morning, Sean. Morning, Sean. Yeah. I was listening to a conversation earlier, and I realized he was a bit upset about the current crime situation, or specifically the one that happened in Belmont.
I mean, on some level, you can also, while it's not crime in the same sense, right, or the same modus operandi or anything like that, there was also the young girl in Tobago and other children, right? Some of it might be criminal negligence, some of it might be outright violence, but the fact that it seems as though there's only so much consideration given to these things, right? I don't know what happened, but the whole upswell of the population when you had those series of young women being murdered, right, and leaving the population upset and concerned, and they voiced the concern, and it's almost as though once they was told, no, you can't protest right now because we have COVID, it was almost like if the country was deflated And now we've seen 600 murders, we've seen multiple mass casualty shootings, we've seen children getting killed. I think at that point in time, children were not dying at the numbers that they're dying now. And we're seeing a population that just, you know, hey, you'll talk to your friends, ain't this bad? Look how bad this is. What's going on in this country? I don't understand. Yeah, but we'll just kind of continue voting for the same two groups of people that we voted for and kind of, you know, and kind of just ignore the, you know, bury our heads in the sand, ignore it. My child alive, so it don't matter to me.
And to be very sarcastic, I will be very sarcastic and not insensitive to the death of the children. I mean, whatever you want to be on, which political side you want to be on, someone lost a child, right? And someone lost. But from being being a little sarcastic, sometimes I believe that it's just a business as usual, right? So because we believe it's just business as usual. It didn't happen to me. It didn't happen to anybody I know. Right? So it's really not going to affect me. It's not going to affect me, or it doesn't bother me because it happened to me. And when you look at what is happening right now, and what has been happening for a number of years, both from both political parties that were managing the affairs of Trinidad and Tobago. You saw an escalation. Sometimes you saw a de-escalation in some types of crimes. Then you saw an escalation because of certain things. One, there's a lack of social programs put in place to address long-term effects, not short-term effects. It is convenient for both parties to use crime to get political points and not understanding that we're not solving any problem, we're just looking for cheap political points. Right? We had, when we had the horrific murders of some young ladies, there was a big outcry. What happened after that? We had multiple shootings in Port of Spain area, St. Paul Street, in the West, where persons are brave enough to drive into a particular community and just discharge a high-powered firearm. They didn't care who got shot, because why? One person would have been the target. Collateral damage. So okay, yeah, and then you hear the argument about what are we doing to deal with that? All of a sudden, both political parties, both administration, and both different commissioners. Remember, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service remain the same. The administration changed. They're still operating the same business as usual. And I keep saying that we're still operating like business as usual. We cannot be in a state of emergency. We cannot be in a state of emergency, or continue to be in a state of emergency, and criminal elements are free to traverse Trinidad and Tobago as normal.
That is one of the key points there. Because now, one of the things is, I did want to speak about the fact that I think it's now a debatable topic. Is crime under control or not under control? Which is very crazy to think of, because I think that's something people will discuss. And we're in a state of emergency because the murder rate is down. But just this week, we've had 2 sensational murders that while anecdotal, there's individual singular instances, right? It's not as though it was a school shooting situation with multiple kids, right? It's not as though it was a gang war where we saw heinous murder after heinous murder over the course of a couple of weeks. It was one beheading in the bushes, one child. But to me, this isn't the first time we've seen these extraordinary circumstances. And it's an indicator to the social side of it, as you pointed out. So at what point now are we going to determine, because I feel as though under the previous administration and this one, there was always a sense of, don't worry, we have things under control, don't worry. Now, in the last administration, it was, well, the murder rate just keeps going up. How do you have it under control? With this one, it's, well, the murder rate is down under state of emergency, but look what's still going on during a state of emergency. Even Senator Naked said crime was a problem after his car was broken into, after he was targeted.
And this, I am saying, is not a problem that politicians are the problem. We keep making it a problem about politicians. We keep making it about administrations. We keep saying it is a... Sean, I am saying this because I am fed up of hearing one party against the other party.
But what I will say this though, accountability.
Fair enough.
Does go up the chain of command and it ends with elected officials.
That is not, I understand the level of accountability, but it is not about political parties anymore. This cannot be about a political party. Which party is doing better or which party is not doing better, is doing worse than the other. In the middle ground, the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago is suffering. You are law-abiding citizens who are collateral damages. In the whole context of we don't want to shake, right, the proverbial tree and say, listen, man, or wave the proverbial whip and say, listen, we need to whip you all into order. Because why? We feel if we whip you all into order, we would not get the political votes. We would not get the votes. But things are happening out of the ordinary. Look at the when narcotics came into Trinidad, was coming into Trinidad and Tobago, right? Good job by the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service by getting those things off the streets. However, how many have already got in that we don't know about?
Yeah.
How many guns came in before we found one cache of guns? How many home invasions that took place? When you listen to the records from the ACP South about the number of home invasions that took place in those areas, thankfully, they were able to deal with two of the groups. But it doesn't change the fact that 20-something home invasions took place. And after 20-something victims, family, remember you was talking about, you were addressing the issue of victims and family, 20-something families, lives were upset, right, turned upside down by home invasions, that we got a number of persons. Killing the number of persons is not solving. Arresting individuals, or even having them, or who police have engaged and they lost their life, not changing the mindset of these home invasion groups or the youths or the criminals who intend on doing home invasion. It'll just make space for somebody else to come. You know why? Because they believe our judicial system is not strong enough. It's not acting fast enough to cause a deterrent. Law enforcement is not detecting persons fast enough. Our detection rate is too low for persons to be fearful that if I commit a crime today, in the shortest possible time I could get arrested. Those drive-bys in Belmont, you think they were worried about being caught? They're not worried about being caught.
I mean, it's one of the things I think people underestimate is the fact that any civilian, any citizen could inflict lethal violence on another very easily.
Yes.
Right? We have a social contract, whether we are aware of it or not, that we would. I don't attack you with a knife, you don't attack me with a knife, right? We don't need guns.
Sure, we do it.
Right? And when society's rules and the enforcement rules breaks down, all of a sudden now people start to question that informal, subconscious social contract. I don't harm you, you don't harm me. People start to say, why? Why do I not harm you? What consequence am I going to face if I harm you? And we get what we get. Now, I'll just say this though. I did say at the top of the show, I started the show, right, saying the quote from DCP Martin, this is not just a police issue, this is a TNT issue where we all have to come together and make the country a safer place. So that at the end of the day, I believe is more or less the foundation or the basis of solutions that come forth from this. However, there is questions on certain specific areas of accountability. Some with the population, some with the social programs, as you pointed out, right? And I fear that we are getting in such a deficit with regards to that area that it will seem almost insurmountable. A couple years ago, caller from Maraval basically said maybe we have to give up on a whole generation. And the rate we're going, we literally might not be able to help multiple generations of young men and maybe young women to get out of this hole. But there are specific issues of accountability, and in fact, part of it is the politicians playing politics over it, because, in this example, I will have a little bit more complaint on the Minister of Homeland Security than his opponent, because I believe he said something to the effect of, well, if we had zone of special operations, we could have prevented this. Belmont would have been a safer community, which on the surface is true. You point out the fact of what the zone of special operations could do. But the counter to that was, well, the country's under SOE now. And as you also pointed out, you're not actually utilizing the SOE, which you can do any manner that you want to use the zone of special operations for.
Because so I agree and I agree and disagree with the way that they're utilizing the SOE. SOE is targeting specific criminal activities. They are seeing successes in dealing with certain things. There are a number of persons have been put before the court, have detention orders, or they will do detention orders for now.
Yeah, some might have been put before the court, to be fair, but yeah.
It is progress, but in a very slow pace. The zone of special operations was specifically designed, was specific to communities that have problems. It is not only communities that have problem. It doesn't mean that your entire community is a criminal community.
Yeah.
It's communities that have problem, because within communities, there are individuals who cause problems within that own community. There are a lot of law-abiding citizens in several of these communities that have problems. They themselves cannot speak out.
Yes.
So the zone of operation was indirectly to assist some of the law-abiding citizens to have another level of protection.
But can't you do that with the state of emergency?
You can't do the state of emergency because the state of emergency is too wide for these type of things. You can do limited state of emergency in terms of, you can do a limited curfews or implement certain restrictions in certain areas, but it's going to take a lot of toll on the police service. The police service is stretched to the maximum limit, right? And they still continue, right? People, a lot of persons might say otherwise. This is very subjective or argumentative in terms of what the police service is doing when it comes to these type of crimes. But there are certain type of crimes, when we keep saying, crimes of opportunity. That incident in Belmont, unfortunate as it is, someone or some group had the intention of committing that. Once you have that intention, it matters not where those individuals would have been, right? They will be targeted and they will be looked at, and once the opportunity presented itself, they committed the offense. Crimes of that is difficult for law enforcement across the world to predict what is happening in the mindset of a group or in mindset of an individual. Criminal organization, you can take your time and work out criminal organization once you have certain type of intelligence and predict certain actions and to counter certain actions that take place. It takes some time to bring down criminal gangs. The anti-gang legislation, as we keep mentioning, it is strong legislation, but there's a lot of evidence gathering in it, and it will take time. It will take over a period of time. There are a number of persons that you mentioned earlier have been arrested under the gang, arrested and charged. There are a number of persons arrested and charged. Conviction is another altogether.
Okay.
Right? So the persons are before the court for gang, members of gang. The outcome of those matters are still yet to be determined because of the judicial system that we have. And not the courts alone, the entire judicial system, because evidence, and the police have to bring in the evidence. Sometimes the evidence is lacking in certain areas, persons go free, right? So we have to work together holistically in addressing crime. Now, when the public don't support the law enforcement, when they don't have trust and confidence in law enforcement being able to deal with certain things, you lost a big opportunity, because law enforcement cannot curb crime if you don't have support.
But here is the problem, because while I understand the arguments you're making, when you look at the holistic results, it almost boggles the mind. It's like, how bad could the various forensic systems, evidence collection, the judicial system, the judiciary, the prosecution's process, you know, the investigative process, like how, we're not saying it's one thing, it's a lot of different things, but how bad could it be to get us such a, what seems to be a compounding snowball result that is just continuing to dig a bigger and bigger hole? And at this point, I don't know if we could spend our way out of it with money we don't have. So, or I don't know if you could get an innovative enough strategy to actually make headway in this thing, so if you don't drastically change the status quo of the police service and other services.
There's two things that we have to look at. There is the conviction, the detection rate of the Trinidad and Tobago police service, and then the conviction rate. Mm-hmm. The police service is responsible for the, or I should say, is directly responsible in the context of detection rate, because they are the ones to bring the matter before the court. Then we have the conviction rate. You can bring all the evidence you have before the court. Once that evidence is not good enough, then the matter you could lose the matter. So then we keep saying that the detection rate is low, but then the conviction rate is also low. So then persons are not being held accountable, and we keep on saying held accountable. Persons, you charge persons that go before the court.
Yeah.
When you charge persons go before the court, based on the evidence that is presented, or sometimes the lack of evidence that is before the court, persons go free. That is the justice system. We cannot.
Listen, I understand that, but I'm just thinking, how bad is it?
But it
right?
is
that we have such horrible results that seemingly getting worse. And this is a sentiment that I think is going to be more common, if it isn't common already, right? To trust and confidence, because people are looking at the results. People look at the results like this, quote, everybody holding a press conference to say last year we had 110 murders and this year we have 100, so we're doing a great job because 10 people didn't get killed, right? Less. This is not it, and this cannot be sweet TNT everybody wants to put all over the world, I think, because, you know, certain news stories gets out there, right, and the travel advisories and things like that. And then when the YouTubers come and show, to some extent, it might be a sensationalized version of reality. But it's still a version of reality.
But everybody wants somebody else to do the job for them.
Well, that I could agree with.
Right? No, I don't expect a citizen to do law enforcement job. Law enforcement is being paid to do law enforcement work. Right? So I'm leaving it there.
Yes.
But citizens of Trinidad and Tobago have a responsibility to your country. And I'm going to make a very simple analogy. You will go to another country.
Yes.
Walk with your empty cartoon or empty bottle in your hand, a piece of paper in your hand, till you find the closest bin.
Yes.
And dispose of it.
Yes.
In Trinidad and Tobago, what do? Discard of it immediately in your hand. But then you talk about, we're talking about, where's the litter wardens? Where's the police when it comes to, but you contributed to it.
I bet we have people here that watch what goes on in America, watch people backtalk the police, look at our police, want to backtalk our police, right? But then when they go to America,
they don't do
that, you know.
They don't dare do that, right? So I am saying that everybody, and based on what Ms. Martin would have indicated there, we all are responsible in specific areas. So the level of responsibility for the administration of the government of the day is different from the level of responsibility as citizen. It's different to the level of responsibility to law enforcement. But everybody has to be accountable for their area of responsibility.
But that said, and this might be very speculative, right? Don't have to be the most accurate, so just give your opinion off the top of your head. Because I do wonder now that when there have been times when, either with you or with others, we speak about the problem, the enormity of the issue, and how multifaceted it is. Yes, you hear a politician or a commissioner or a minister say, oh, you need a multifaceted approach. But I don't know if they really hit people with the reality of what that means and how deep and how wide the scope that statement really goes, right? So I'm left to wonder, this administration is a year in. To be fair, they have been technically more aggressive than the previous administration in certain ways, right? But with regards to the last administration, and this might speak to maybe why even this administration is limited, is it that they themselves just didn't really know even where to begin to try to solve the problem? Because outside of the SOE, to some degree, we could argue, now we've seen more Coast Guard activity, we've seen the police interdict in some serious crimes recently, so that's good, and that might be part of the influence of the new government. But the only real big difference has been SOE, no SOE. And we haven't really seen anything that will suggest, yeah, we could stop a crew here, we could stop a crew there, but the wider problem that's generating criminals from one generation to the next, from one age group to the next, is almost like if we're talking about a dam is going to break and somebody wants to put a standpipe to close off the standpipe, and somehow that will stop the flow of a whole river.
So a normal person would not want to accept the reality of this administration is making some inroads. It may not have been the amount that or how significant it is, but they have been making some inroads.
Yes.
I don't want to sound like a biased to any political party or as singing the mantra of a political party, but in reality is we have reached such a low point in Trinidad and Tobago when it comes to crime, social programs and everything like that. When it comes to lost generation, it's not going to happen overnight. There is going to take, the fight will be long-lasting, incremental, but while we have incremental, we see changes in the crime landscape. We see more violent crimes taking place. We see violent crimes being portrayed on social media.
I mean,
so it is difficult for you and I to say,
yeah,
hey.
This is the crazy part. We are seeing incremental improvements, right? We've seen a kidnapping crew and a home invasion crew in about the span of a month get taken up by the police. That's great, but somehow the sentiment, the prevailing sentiment of the level of crime and how control it is or out of control hasn't gotten better even with that.
And that's the reality of what, so it brings, for me, it brings home the fact, right, and the point that we are not out of it as yet. We are nowhere close to saying that we have crime as under control. We are nowhere close to.
We just had this week the report 5 students and aldermen tried to break up a fight with Tranquility students against whoever, and he got caught up in the fracas and got assaulted. To me, I think at this point now we kind of maybe need to understand what school violence probably means. It's not just school children being belligerent. It is the precursor of a mindset that will get to crime, right?
So take away the uniform from those children, or the perpetrators of that incident, that assault, the assault on the first the child and then the assault on the alderman. Take away the uniform. Who do we have? We have a teenager, right?
Yeah.
Take away the uniform. We have a teenager. So the issue is not the uniform. The issue is our young children. And when people use the schools,
right,
and say it's this school against this school, or this school has this and this. Take away the uniform.
Isn't that kind of like when you go back to gangsters killing gangsters? So we can all turn a blind eye to it. It's nothing to do with us.
So when you look at it, the deeper issue has nothing to do with the uniform directly or alone, right? The uniform or the school environment may have contributed to something, but the school is not the only environment that these teenagers came from. They came from communities that accept and contribute to violence, from homes who behave in a particular manner. So that is their role models. The type of role models that we have right now, I don't know what kind of role models we're going to have for the future.
Well, consider this. This is from March 13, the Ministry of Education. I believe the figures were that something along the lines of 17,000 students sat SEA this year, and around 9,000 of them may have been male, or 8,000 to 9,000, right? About half. Now, of course, school violence knows no limits on gender.
Sure.
Right? But violent crime tends to be more perpetrated by males than females. So 1 year group, right? A generation is technically more than 1 year group as far as I understand. Maybe I'm wrong. 1 year group is 9,000. Imagine the potential of losing the proper development of even a fraction of that every year. We got two. Now, the kidnapping ring, there was some foreigners. So we also have to be concerned about that, right? But the home invasion ring was local. And that's not the only group that does home invasions in the country. That's not the source of half of the violence in the country, right? So my thing is, when you have multiple stories, it's not as though it's one group of students in the papers every time, right?
True.
So as each year goes by, is it a couple hundred? Is it a couple thousand of young men? Whether it is because the system failed them, whether it is because they just got the wrong impression, whether it is because they had a bad experience, a bad parent, a bad interaction, whether it is they were mischievous and that mischievousness turned into wickedness. Like the capacity for us to lose young men into this wrong path. And I guess part of it is, who are they supposed to model themselves after? Who are they supposed to look up to?
Exactly. And you losing these youths to the criminal elements and to do I should say petty crimes and all those type of things. What is their future? Do they see themselves as having any future? Or do they see themselves, normally when you go to an interview, they'll ask you how you see yourself in 5 years from now, right? Or 10 years from now. They don't even see themselves 5 years from now, because they don't see themselves even worrying about 5 years down, because they live in today for today, right? When you listen to some of them, they don't have any aspirations of owning any house, owning any, having a stable job, having families, and taking care. Some of them, they don't really bother about that. That mindset that some of them have, they don't think about a future.
But isn't it also true that some of the victims of violent crime are the ones that eventually kind of figure out, hey, maybe I want a future. But their past, unfortunately, is not allowing them to live in peace.
There are evidence of such things, that when you're trying to change your life, it's the type of life that you will live in, also the environment where it's difficult for you to transition out of it. There are a lot of multiple factors with respect to that. But I'll give you an example. It just came up while I was in Port of Spain division. We were doing patrols in the division, and I had on my uniform, walking through with my uniform, and a gentleman jump up and stop up here. Officer, what are you doing about crime in this area here? All them young men and all of that snatching and all kind of things. So I asked him one question. I say, where do you live? But I live on the street. I live in this community here. I say, so you know all the young men that have been doing snatching, right? He stay quiet. So his other colleagues say, you should have stayed quiet because you just put your foot in your mouth. I say, you want me, who not living, and I am bringing down that very, to his ground level understanding, right? We're talking language, and be common with the individuals. Talk how they talk. I say, I'm not living in your area, you know. I don't live in your area. Where I live is not where you live. I didn't grow up there. You are adults in that area. You know all the teenagers, all the young fellas, everybody who is committing these type of things. You know them. What have you all been doing about this? But we just talk to them and they don't listen. I say, so you want the law enforcement to come? I say, when law enforcement comes in there, would you be supporting law enforcement to put a handcuff on them and allow and to take care of them?
Because that's the thing. When you have a mass police presence in an area, I mean, criminals are stupid. You think they're gonna start snatch a chain right in front of police? Like, come on now. They're gonna wait you out.
And they're
gonna move on.
And this is my experience, and I think the experience of many persons. They want the assistance of law enforcement, but they directly cannot ask for the assistance of law enforcement because why? In their community, they have to show that they don't like police. So that is why that put up that boundary. Police and I, we always have conflict because this is how the community is operated. We don't deal with police. Yeah. But indirectly, they're willing for the police officers to be there to assist them. That is where I am saying, for persons who understand, who are part of law enforcement and work in communities that have large communities that involved in a lot of criminal activities in certain communities, those individuals would have understood why the zone of special operations has benefits far beyond just simply having police presence there, because that police presence there has a rippling effect, because over a period of time, that constant presence of police, you will get some citizens, right? Open up to police.
Consistency.
Yeah, open up to police. We're willing to share more information, but because of how persons view it and how it was portrayed by persons who are against it, they believe it was a force and you're targeting communities.
Well, I didn't necessarily want to do this, but we have a comment that might literally touch on that. So let's take the comment, right? Good morning, guys. I'm going to keep harping on this. I'm only seeing one ethnic group where the majority of killing of each is going on. Also, the fights in schools, only one group again. As the former education minister said, PNM's mothers, fathers, grandmothers, grandfathers. I know it hurts, but the truth is painful. Thanks. Here's the thing, though. Technically speaking, statements like this, I think, adds to that scenario, where if you make it about race, then other people are also going to make it about race.
And so this statement is true to almost 100% true. But we have to add in the other factors also. We have reached a stage where it's no longer about race anymore, because we have other ethnicities following in the same trend, right? Yes, we have a certain race, higher race and higher
in terms of numbers.
In terms of numbers. But it's not stopping there. We have the other races as well as other persons, foreign persons who come in and add into the whole criminal element. So if we keep if we keep believing there's only one race alone, and I'm saying to people, criminals don't see race.
I mean, we've had criminals of other race being reported of being caught or killed in a police shootout before, right? I understand that the demographics skew to one side, but it's not as though it is literally 100%.
Sean, the public, and I hope the public understand, criminals do not see race.
They just see opportunity.
They see opportunity. Criminals, whether you are, and I will say whether you are African, East Indian, Caucasian, Spanish or what, they all come together to form an organization to cause problems on law-abiding citizens, right? They don't see well, an African group going to target an East Indian group, or East Indian group going to target an African group. Those criminals join together, and when you look at the makeup of some of those persons, they are all criminal elements together. And Sean, it doesn't matter who you are, we are going for this individual.
Also, I want to say, some of these school fights, no, it wasn't all of one race.
Exactly.
In some of those videos, it wasn't all of one race, right? So now it speaks to, because here's the thing, I understand there are certain factors in Port of Spain, in the Port of Spain area, in North Trinidad, which mimic certain factors that you get in other urban areas, in other parts of the world where you have this problem. And of course now, if there's a predominant, if it's predominantly, like say in the United States, African American, well then yes, these statistics will be there. If you go to Alaska, there are a lot of African American criminals in Alaska, a lot of drugs in Africa, in Alaska and Hawaii, where the predominant races of crime, because yes, America is a majority white country, but the areas where certain crimes are happening are majority of one demographic. So you can't just say, well, you know, X, Y, Z. Part of that is environmental factors and a whole host of other things. Part of that is also, I'm going to say politicians.
Our society is so integrated with each other, right? We have intermixing from a social perspective, we have intermixing of race and religion, right? So we don't see it, and that is a positive part of what Trinidad and Tobago is about. We have intermixing of races, intermixing of religions, and we do not fight we don't have conflicts under those issues. From social issues, for Carnival, it doesn't matter who you are, right? We are Trinidadians, Trinidad and Tobago citizens, and we enjoy ourselves because Carnival is our culture. That is how we enjoy ourselves. Now, you have marriages or interracial marriages, right? So to say that there's only one race, I'm saying, but when you...
But here's the other thing though. Let's just say, all right, it's majority one race. How does that help us solve the problem? What exactly are we going to do with that piece of information? Because really what it comes down to is we're going to be looking not so much of anything to do with race, we're going to look at, yes, the schools, but the schools of that area. Yeah. We're going to look at the communities of that area.
The opportunities provided.
Because the thing is, if for whatever reason, things change and the demographics change in certain geographic areas, I'm fairly confident you're going to see eventually crime more or less operate how it operates now. Because the people, the masterminds will find a way to manipulate vulnerable communities, because for the crime bosses, hotspots. You see, for a home invasion crew, a home that's vulnerable, that's the opportunity. For a gang leader or a drug lord, a hotspot community, that's his opportunity. That's his opportunity to recruit. That's his opportunity to find stash houses.
Yes.
Right? That's his opportunity to have a base of operations for distribution, protection, you know, and what have you. Right? So, and listen, who are the bosses? Well, we know who the last gang leader who was executed in the States. We know who that is.
Right.
And I'm not saying, well, because of that, obviously, we have an issue with a certain demographic being drug lords in this country.
No, we don't,
right?
Because we have
all walks of life.
All walks of life who participate or was convicted of these acts.
But the key is, the correlation of race, it doesn't really help on a practical level with the solutions. And I want to just go back to the point I initially made. So when now people like the opposition want to say it's about race, well, ideally, it's technically not about race. But if some of the people who are supporting the endeavor wants to include that argument, then all of a sudden, while the actual debate is not about race, but the debate has a race argument entered, and now that's where the debate will lead to.
Demographics also has a lot to play. And the reality of demographics coupled with politics is significant. So those who want to put their head in the sand and don't understand that, this is not about party, this is not about the party, this is about politics and demographics. If you analyze demographics, crimes in these certain demographics in terms of the geographical locations of where these crimes are taking place, certainly hotspots, the reality of who are the type of the races as well as the supporters of political parties, the base, it's clear. It has now changed, and we could have said that that line would have been crossed across, we have a straight line on which side it is. Now those lines are very blurred. Because of why? That has now changed, and is now, it has changed over the years when you have distribution of demographics to different locations. So you have communities popping up, we have housing settlements springing up in certain areas, low income housing areas together with other activities taking place. Persons are migrating from one part of the country to another part of the country because of job opportunities and a lot of different things, so they're moving around. Same thing criminals are doing. When one area becomes hot in terms of the police presence and their opportunities are being reduced for them to operate, they go to another area. But here how they go to the other area, Sean, all they're doing is just jump in the vehicle, go down to another area, stay by a friend. Who the friend is? The friend might be of a different race because all of them are criminals together. They're not worrying about, they are common, the common denominator for them is that, hey, we're going to rub together. Yeah. We're not worrying about how you looking, how I looking. No. Well, we have a common goal.
But not just that. I think also there is the fact police corruption is not a whole set of police taking money from gangsters and doing all kind of illegal things, right? There are levels. Some of it is benign. Some of it is minor. Some of it you could even tolerate a little bit of because it's like, oh, well, you know what? A family member, a small infraction, you know, give us a little leeway now, which is in a way within the purview, right? It's not like a whole set of officers is doing that. It's the same thing for the population. Not all members of the population are going to be in bed with the gangsters and part of the crew. But you have to understand, there's levels to it, and it's along the same lines of, well, you're not doing the right thing. When you know what's going on, don't want to tell police. When you are friends or family that, well, oh God, he's a good boy, you know, he'll turn his life around. We need to give him a chance. You know, there's a lot of family around the world who would protect their children from legal consequences because they're their children, not understanding you're spoiling your child. You're not protecting them from nothing. You're not helping them, right? There are levels to it. They're the ones that the citizens that just don't want to be involved, so they turn a blind eye to everything. So they can say truthfully, well, I know nothing, which is fine. But the fact of the matter is, when it happens to a family member of yours, then all of a sudden you'll want to know something, right? So there are levels to this. And just like how the police come from us, whatever we might view as negative behavior from police, it's because they're human just like us. They're from the same society just like us. They have the same faults just like us. And part of it is if we're going to act a certain way, then there are going to be some police officers that are like, why am I going to sacrifice myself and do all of this thing? And then you're just going to let these guys walk free because you all don't want to say nothing? Because he's a good boy? I mean, on some level, some of the same things that causes young men, forces them into a life of crime, causes some police officers, at the very least, I think, to be apathetic. Yeah. Because I know in the public service, the few times I know people who work in the public sector, they try to be a force of positive change and then eventually just give up.
Because the opposing forces are too great.
It's too embedded in society.
It continues to be a difficult challenge because when you keep You want a change, but you're not willing to change. You're not willing. You're not willing to change your environment. You're not willing to change the way that your outlook, right? Now, I have no issues with if these citizens have a challenge with some police officers because of the interaction may not be in a professional manner. Mm-hmm. That is understood, because I expect that they should always be operate in a professional manner and show respect for the public. They don't expect the public. For me, this is me. I don't expect the public to respect me as Ashraf Ali, but respect the uniform that I have. Mm-hmm. And in order for you to respect the uniform that I hold, right, that is state I have, it is not respecting me, it's respecting the state uniform. And if you the holder of a state uniform, or any state or any public servant, disrespect the office or the uniform that you hold, nobody will have respect for you. Yeah. So that is how we have to look at it. I don't expect that you go over there, and when you go there, that the public must respect you because the uniform that you have on, right? Because you're not showing respect for the uniform that you have on, and how you carry about yourself, the demeanor and the operator. Yes, we could come from the same society, but that doesn't mean I have to behave the same way, because I have a different. Yes, yeah. I am a public servant, and I'm here to set a different standard that you're supposed to follow. I'm supposed to be the public figure, or at the same time, the role model, or one of our role model for you to follow.
But here's the unfortunate reality. I believe we have settled for weak leadership, right? Because I honestly think the politicians, if the public exercised their function, their role in a democracy, right? Not just in elections, but with regards to voicing their opinion, letting their voices be heard, demanding proper representation. Look, MPs in Parliament, they have to toe the party line.
Yes.
They don't represent their constituents, right? So you voted for guys and girls that are not representing you. And the fact of the matter is, on some level though, this only happens because the population tolerates it. On some level, they do take cues from the population. And similar to how the police sees this difficulty now, because you do need public support to gather evidence when you're investigating crimes. Not every crime is going to conveniently leave DNA evidence. He snatched my chain. Well, right, he snatched the chain. The fingerprints on the chain. The hairs, this is a public road. How are we going to know who hair who? Right? To get DNA. So, and so on and so on. So you need the public support. And on some level, I think also the politicians, they talk to the police service on the difficulties. They see the difficulties. Yeah. So they themselves are like, well, what are we supposed to do? What are we supposed to do? What do you want us to do? But part of it then comes down to what you said earlier, right? Where a strong leadership will understand, all right, we have challenges. What are the challenges? The public doesn't want to support us. How do we get them to support us? And it goes back down to the very cliched storyline you see time and time again with regards to when you have a movie about some guy that has a social program or some woman. They had that movie with, oh gosh, the song won a Grammy.
Okay, sorry, sure.
G's and H's. There have been multiple movies about, yeah. I mean, Morgan Freeman had one, you go into school, The Rock had one, a football program. Yes. You go into a situation, Michelle Pfeiffer, Coolio, he had the famous song that won a Grammy, right? Going into school, having to connect to the students. And what is one of the key points of the storyline, always? It is the authority figure, the main character, not just coming to say, I'm going to solve the problems, but consistently, no matter what the challenges are, no matter how difficult it is, to continue putting forth all of the effort that they could find, all of the attention and the consideration, consistency, right? Yes. But the thing is, I'm saying it's not just the police. It has to be the leadership too, right? Because if the population doesn't see consistency Then they're going to say, and when you leave, we'll be right back to where we started. And if any of us, because this is what you see in the Middle East.
Yeah.
Once the Americans leave, what happened?
And
all the changes were rolled back.
Because buying to something that was not buying. When you don't buy into a situation, you just allow it to continue because they're saying it's going to fail. Give them 5 years and they're going to, we're already get that. He only have a few months again to go. Let me see how long he or she will last. Because you're not buying into it. That is where one of these situations I am saying that when we placed police officers in schools, it is not a fast fix.
Yeah.
It's supposed to, it has to have some rollout in it. It was a good opportunity by putting police officers in school, giving a foothold for them. But what is the police doing in the school alone? It cannot be doing law enforcement in school. It has to be part and parcel of the curriculum, part and parcel of the social programs. It has to be part and parcel of how the school environment has to change. Police has to be integrated into it. The officers should not be there alone for detecting crimes, arresting students who delinquent or causing anything, because there's a program under the ministry to address all of that. But if they are there to help change the mindset, to help change the cultural aspects of certain things, the environment, change how children see things on the what they expect on the outside, because they're not seeing what's happening on the outside. They're not worrying about what happened when they finish school, you know. When you have all those children writing secondary exam, C-Sec and all of that, and they come out of school, where are they now? Let's look at the statistics. Let's take 100. If I take 100, the reality is that out of 100 persons right now who come out of school, less than 50% or even less than 70% of those individuals, less than, right, not going to get a job within a year time. What are they going to do? What do we have for them other than just sitting around hoping to get something to do? We have vulnerable cases because some of them might not be able, they came from vulnerable communities, vulnerable households, that crime and the so-called gang leaders and the criminals, their livelihood and their life seems much more beneficial to them because they see fast earning, fast income, and they levitate towards it they gravitate towards it and say, hey, that's the best opportunity. So you're going to, we putting out children from universities with a lot of degrees, coming out of secondary school that can't even go to universities because they may not have all the,
yeah.
So then we have a whole pool of teenagers and young adults that is vulnerable to a lot of the influences of our lack of social programs, our criminal environment, right?
But also I think a lack of holistic development. Because I feel as though we are so concerned about cramming academics down their throats to pass exams, not to learn anything, not to prepare themselves to go to university, to then get qualified with knowledge to start a career, but rather just to pass the next test.
And that is, and the academics is not only the one aspect of it. They don't know vocational skills.
But I mean, think about it this way. I think on some level, they don't really understand, because I'll be honest, I think I myself, as much as my mom tried, right, I didn't necessarily understand the importance of these exams. Now, granted, in my generation's case, a lot of our parents didn't. So they didn't have direct experiences because they got jobs at O levels. That's not going to happen now, right? But think about the fact that when development of young men and young women, they don't understand the importance of what the education means, of the process of the education. They don't understand civic responsibilities. They don't understand certain courtesies and how to interact with people. Like just the other day, I'm in a parking lot in a prestige school, and I'm rolling out. And it's not like I am rolling out to hit anybody, but I am moving. You're seeing me moving.
And you don't want to move.
They are continuing to walk towards my moving car from a distance. Right? I heard that a boy got knocked down just yesterday. I'm like, I'm not surprised, to be honest.
Yes.
No, granted, he might not have had the same mindset as those men, so I don't want to put that on him, right? But I mean, on some level, I'm not surprised, right? So if we just telling them, look, you just have pass this exam, pass this exam, pass this exam. As people, there was a time when children, yes, we understand child labor is a thing, right? But first of all, the way how we chuck them in schools is almost like child labor. No. But when you had chores around the house because your family had a farm and they needed you to work the farm to help them survive, you laid responsibility. In Japan, the school is not cleaned by maintenance staff.
No, it is not.
The school is cleaned by the students. There's a rotation. They have responsibilities. And there's a certain level of civic responsibility and duty that Japanese culture has. And it's not all for the better, right? Because there's certain bad aspects of their culture, certain negative consequences that we wouldn't want. But the basic premise of, well, we are going to instill in our young people some level of understanding and responsibility.
I could remember when I was going to school, there was a lot of painting, a lot of writings on the school and things like that. And the teachers say, well, you know, we have to pull together to paint. I have no issue with that. Painting is not, that's fun. At the end of the day, I had no classes, you know, that is, right. So we put, but in the group, I remember some students saying, I didn't come to school to paint. And I'd watching them and like, something had to be wrong because I listened. No, when I carry home my letter from my mom, she said, what is this for? I said, well, we have permission because we have to go and paint the school. She said, yeah. All the trend thing about school, yeah. I sent it to school, but you can't go and damage nothing. She had no problem, There are parents who came in the school, and as a student I witnessed that where parents came in the school and I trying to say, what this parent vexed about the child painting the school for, but this is our classroom. I don't see an issue with it. I didn't see an issue with it. And as an adult, when I get, and as an adult, and when I have my I have my children, and the school is asking for that. If I could go in, if I have to go and assist and do it, I am going to do it also. Right? I did go in school and assist. But we have parents who complain in.
But also, I think, because I think people need to understand, development is not just with books. When the class is painting the classroom together,
there's a social interaction.
There you go.
Right? And children lack social interaction at this point in time.
Yeah.
Right? So they do. So the total interaction with different groups. So right now, they're only with a particular group. And if that group is a negative influence towards them, or is a very bad influence, they can't see the negative because that is the only interaction they have with them.
Well, also, they haven't experienced proper positive interaction. Here's another thing. When I was in Form 6, a lot of my peers didn't understand, well, why you couldn't let the lower school leave the school to go buy food. It's just across the road.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hold on. In my mind, because I didn't necessarily say this all right, you all understand, the school is responsible for these minors. We are technically minors, but we have some level of extra permission to leave, right? The school is responsible for these minors. I found it interesting that they didn't fully understood what that meant. That the school can just, go forth and buy whatever random, whatever, by whoever, that has no requirements to be at the side of the road because we can't stop them from being on the side of the road. Right? And it's things like that where it's like, hey, what is safe? What is right? What is proper? Right? To what extent is it being instilled in our young people? Because then now on some level, when we say put the police in school, it's almost like if we're kind of like surprised. What do you mean they don't know what is right from wrong? Well, who taught them?
And when we say we're losing a generation, I think it's not about a generation. The generation is not about an age group alone, you know. We're losing a generation of age groups.
Yeah.
Right? Because you have persons from, let's say around 30, 40 years, have no level of responsibility, who have children or multiple children. We have children with multiple persons. What sort of example are you setting, or any kind of example are you going to set for your teenage or young adult, seeing that you are on the, and not stereotyping anybody, but I'm just using the colloquial language, lineman on the block, right, for the entire day. You are working away, and you have a child to mind. What does the child know?
You could say lineman on the block. You could say lineman in the rum shop. You could say lineman on the beach. You could say lineman at the bar, lineman being in the casino. That's the worst one.
Right, and you have children that you're supposed to be minding, but you're complaining that you're not getting a work, but you're not looking for a work, and you're saying, society, right, ain't giving me nothing, but you're not going to look for nothing at all.
Let me clarify. Being in the casino when you can't afford to be in the casino. If you can afford your losses, that's fine. You're an adult, that's up to you. When you can't afford, and many can't.
True.
I mean, there's nothing worse than that, especially if, as Ashraf was saying, you have kids to feed, and the money to feed the child is going down the drain at some craps table, or I don't know what's popular here, cards or whatever. We have a call on the line. We'll take the call. Caller, good morning. You on here?
Hello, good morning.
Morning.
Morning, Sean, and morning to Mr. Ali.
Morning.
Right. Sean, I will be very brief this morning. As far as Mr. Ali spoke about, did mention early in the program that when we citizens leave our country, Trinidad, and we go to foreign jurisdictions, United States of America and Europe, we would be walking on the street, we finish, suck the sweetie, to use a common term, and when we finish, or we eat the chocolate bar, and then we would, in Trinidad, we would discard the sweetie wrapper or the chocolate bar wrapper and just throw it on the pavement. But when we go to other jurisdictions, we don't do that. We will hold that wrapper, sweetie paper in our hands until we find a bin. But Mr. Ali missed the point. When you go to foreign jurisdictions, there are consequences for that sort of action. In Trinidad, for wrongdoing, from what I am observing, as a senior citizen now, I consider myself a senior citizen, when there's wrongdoing in this country, there are no consequences. We don't find the litter wardens. The whole crux of the matter, you would not take that chance in a foreign jurisdiction. Because if you are caught discarding the sweetie wrapper and throwing it on the pavement, and not in a proper bin, and the litter warden over there finds you, there would be consequences.
So true.
You could be fined, a serious fine, or the matter will be adjudicated in court. But over here, there are no consequences for that sort of. I just referring to this simple matter. Sure. There are no consequences. I don't know Sean and Mr. Ali, I don't know what a litter warden looks like. I don't think I have ever seen a litter warden parading the streets of Frederick Street or Henry Street or in San Fernando. I don't know if I see a police officer or a fireman, I will know they have a uniform. I wish if somebody could tell me what a litter warden looks like. They collect a salary at the end of the month, but they don't. To me, you see signs where no littering here, no rubbish must be dumped here, and you see heaps and mounds of rubbish there. The problem that Mr. Ali missed, there are no consequences for discarding your waste paper just like that on the pavement. And that is the crux of the matter. There is no law enforcement. We have many laws on the statute books to deal with crime and criminality. But the problem in Trinidad is no enforcement. People just collect enough salary for doing nothing.
Caller, I'll have to
on another program. I'll close now. On another program, I'll deal with the lack of action on the police part in enforcing certain laws. Thank you very much. I'll listen to the response of it. Be safe and have a good weekend.
You too. The one thing I have is this. It does show that the population, that the people know better. It does show that the people know better. And there's, on some level, I understand you do need consequence. When you get to a population level situation, you do need consequences to discourage bad behavior. But on a very basic level, there is a part of me that has an issue because it's like, well, but we know better. Why do we need the threat of punishment for something so basic? You know, we're not going into big things. So like, say when you're at the supermarket, you know, they designate areas to leave the trolleys. You know how annoyed I am when I see a parking spot and there's a trolley there? So not only now, I don't want to park there, I don't want to risk hitting the trolley with my car, but also, what if a breeze blows and it hits another car? I have gone out of my way to retain trolleys. Not because it's mandated of me, but once I am in a designated area, that's all I need to do. Sometimes I'll go and take it all the way back to the main building. I'm not just gonna, because I'm thinking, well, what if it slips out? What if it rolls away? What if it hits somebody, right? And it's little things like that. But the caller's point is valid. The caller's point is completely valid. But I'm just saying it's a shame on some level. It is a shame that that is the reality. But he's very correct in that regards. Consequence in TNT is like, I don't know, that is the part where we are not a real place. Because consequence is not real. We have marijuana smoking in the street. But it's fine. It's nothing to see here, business as usual.
Business as usual.
We have a comment to take quick. We have to wrap up quick because at 10 a.m. we have 10 questions with the indomitable Andy Johnson. But they're all saying a hungry man child is an angry man child. Here's the thing. I think it's not that this is going to explain all crime, but to say that this is not a factor, right? Because as you were pointing out, what are the opportunities for the young men and young women now finishing O-levels that have limited number of passes and so on, right? So that's essentially what it says. But then also the fact that right now, the one area where I do wonder if this government's policies did not help the situation, the lower income earners, whether it is from taxes and fines that are making their cost of living significantly, like disproportionately harder than the wealthier parts of the population, or those who were actually cutting the grass for CPEP that now no longer have that income.
True.
Right? We have, okay, we lost the call. We don't have much time, so I would please encourage people to call in next week. If you want to speak to Ashraf, call in next week, Friday. We just need to wrap things up. So, at the end of the day, I think part of it is consistency. And unfortunately, with our election cycle, the PNM was there for 10 years. They didn't take advantage of it. And now we had a change. And the economic policies change. And that caused economic disruption. And of course, the law enforcement policies to some extent change because we have a new commissioner, we have new ministers, we have new ministries, right? And what we're not getting is consistency because, as I said, that's the trope. When you have troubled teens, the person to help them has to show consistency. When you have a troubled nation, the leaders have to show some level of commitment to consistency. But also you do need, you know, good work as well, right? And I fear, with regards to politicians, that's not really on the agenda. As much as the population wants to say politicians who we bad talk, who we don't trust, who we complain about, you all solve the problems. We don't want to be involved. I also think the politicians then say, well, you know, it is not my job to make a crime plan. Famous words, right? Police, who we allow to be bad talk and who we don't care if the public distrust because we don't have money for body cameras. Or you go on the front lines and deal with that. We have no more money for you to help you out here with this, right? Or you need more cars, we'll get the cars. Why will we get the cars? Because then when we have a ceremony to say that we have all these cars, we could take photos and shake hands and cut ribbons and all of that dog and pony show stuff, right? And yeah, you all deal with it, right? And the public as well. We complain about the police. The police not doing a good enough job. But as you pointed out, when the police ask for help, all right, we not doing a good enough job, help us. Nah, we don't want to help you. You'll solve it on your own. The same police we don't have faith in to solve the problem, we want you all to solve it on your own.
And that is where we have to break this, not to say break the cycle, but change the attitudes toward persons. And it's going to take, this is not going to happen today, and it's not going to happen tomorrow. It's going to take some time. It is not going to change from, it's not going from 0 to 100 and say, okay, we reach perfect society. There's no perfect society in the world, right? Yeah. But there are societies that are better, there are societies and certain things are better. In order for us, and one of the things we must always remember, in order for us to have a lawless society, we as citizens have to be willing to give up some of our rights and privileges. And I will leave that right there.
I wanted to end on a similar sentiment because I think in terms of budget, but also with regards to what Ashraf said, what rights what in general are you willing to sacrifice? El Salvador was willing to sacrifice rights. They said, hey, young man, go lock all of them up. Some innocents get locked up too. To some extent, they're willing to put up with some innocent being scooped up with the guilty because the thing was so bad. The murder rate was so bad. The level of violence was so bad. Now, I'm not saying we need to suspend our laws to cause innocent people to be in jail, but it could be as simple as, well, what budget-wise are you willing to give up? Which is something I said, I think, 2 budgets ago. 2 budgets ago, right? For the very least, we have to consider more labs, more equipment for the police, and potentially, I don't know how sustainable this is in the long run, but maybe for a certain cycle of recruitment and employment, a larger authorized strength of the police service to help us deal with the immediate concerns, as well as spending on social programs. To make the gains stick. The police could give us the short-term gains. The social programs is what helps make it permanent. Keeps the cycle from repeating itself. But the population has to buy in on all of that, has to support all of that. So part of it is you're willing to sacrifice your time, you're willing to sacrifice your energy, you're willing to potentially take the risk and be the neck that sticks out to say, yes, these are the young men that are committing crime in my community, and I'm going to stand up for my community because I don't want this in my community. Where's that? All right, thanks to the commenters. Thanks for the caller. Sorry we couldn't take a call from Davide. Ashraf, thanks for joining me once again.
No problem, Sean.
Folks, this is talking about the WSND Content Capital. Don't miss 10 Questions with Andy Johnson next at 10 a.m. Always having some of the most interesting interviews that you will find in TNT. Now, in the meantime, remember to stay safe. Remember your allegiance to the Republic and to each other. Above all other allegiances, we are one Trinbagonian people. It's nice to be nice. We'll see each other next week. Have a good one. Make it so for everybody you meet. Bye-bye.
WESN.
If these walls could talk, they'd cry uncle. They didn't plan to become offices or yoga studios, but they've stood by us